The Empire had conquered 17 solar systems in the span of 300 years. Their warships moved through the galaxy like hungry wolves, devouring everything in their path. They believed themselves to be the greatest species in the known universe. Their technology was centuries ahead of any other civilization they had encountered. Their weapons could destroy moons. Their shields could withstand the heat of a star. They feared nothing. When their scout ships first detected Earth in the year 2089, they laughed. The small blue planet was home to creatures who had barely reached their own moon. These humans, as they called themselves, were still fighting wars with primitive projectile weapons. They were still burning fossil fuels for energy. They were still dying from simple diseases. The High Council considered them barely worth conquering. But resources were resources. Earth had water, minerals, and most importantly, it had billions of potential slaves. They sent a single battle cruiser to claim the planet. They expected the mission to take 3 days at most. The battle cruiser was called the Dread Sovereign. It was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level every major city on Earth in a single hour. Commander stood on its bridge and watched the blue planet grow larger in the viewport. He had conquered 11 worlds before this one. He expected this would be his easiest victory yet. The humans detected the Dread Sovereign when it entered their solar system. Their primitive satellites and radio telescopes picked up the massive ship near Jupiter. Panic spread across the world. Governments fell into chaos. Religious leaders declared it the end times. Military leaders scrambled to prepare defenses they knew would be useless. Commander broadcast his demands to the entire planet. Surrender immediately or face complete destruction. He gave them 12 hours to respond. The humans did not surrender. Instead, they launched everything they had at the approaching warship. Nuclear missiles, kinetic projectiles, even experimental laser systems that had never been tested in combat. The attacks were desperate and uncoordinated. Watched the weapons approach his ship with amusement. The nuclear missiles detonated against his shields and did nothing. The projectiles bounced off like raindrops against stone. He ordered his weapons officer to begin the bombardment. The Dread Sovereign's plasma cannons fired upon Earth's major cities. New York vanished in a flash of blue fire. Moscow followed. Then Beijing, Tokyo, London, and Paris. In the span of 6 hours, 2 billion humans died. The survivors fled into the mountains, the deserts, and the deep forests. They hid underground in bunkers and tunnels. They became like rats, desperate and afraid. Was satisfied. The planet was subdued. He ordered his troops to begin landing operations and establish control over the remaining population. He expected the cleanup to take a few weeks at most. But something went wrong. During the initial bombardment, a human submarine commander named Captain made a decision that would change the course of history. Her submarine, the USS Defiance, carried experimental torpedoes fitted with antimatter warheads. The technology was unstable and had never been tested. The scientists who built them had warned that they might not work at all, or they might work too well. Did not care about the risks. She had watched the cities burn from the submarine's sensors. She had lost contact with her family in New York. She had nothing left to lose. The Defiance rose from the ocean depths and fired all 8 of its antimatter torpedoes at the Dread Sovereign as it hovered over the burning remains of what was once North America. 7 of the torpedoes exploded harmlessly against the shields, but the 8th torpedo somehow slipped through a gap in the shield grid. Perhaps the constant bombardment had created a momentary weakness. Perhaps it was simply luck. Whatever the reason, the torpedo struck the ship's lower hull and detonated. The explosion ripped through 3 decks of the Dread Sovereign. It destroyed the main reactor cooling systems and damaged the primary weapons array. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Crew members were sucked into the vacuum of space through the breach in the hull. Commander stared at his damage reports in disbelief. The ship was not destroyed, but it was badly wounded. The reactor was overheating. The weapons were offline. The shields were failing, faced a choice. He could stay and fight with a crippled ship, or he could retreat and call for reinforcements. His pride demanded that he stay. His training demanded that he retreat. In the end, his training won. The dread sovereign limped away from Earth and jumped into hyperspace, but the damage was worse than realized. The jump consumed the last of the ship's power reserves. The reactor failed completely. Life support began to shut down. Emergency systems kicked in, but they would only last for a few days. The ship dropped out of hyperspace in a dead zone between star systems. There was nothing around them for light years. No planets, no stations, no help. Ordered his crew to abandon ship. They loaded into escape pods and fled into the darkness, hoping that a rescue fleet would find them before their supplies ran out. They left the dread sovereign behind, a broken hulk drifting through the void. They did not bother to destroy it. They did not believe anyone would ever find it. They did not believe anyone could repair it even if they did. They were wrong about humans. The escape pods sent distress signals as they fled. Those signals were detected by human listening posts. The survivors of Earth tracked the trajectory of the fleeing and found the abandoned warship 3 months later. The first humans to board the dread sovereign were a team of engineers and scientists led by a woman named Doctor. She had lost her entire research team in the Tokyo attack. She had spent the months since then studying every piece of technology that had fallen to Earth during the battle. She understood their systems better than anyone alive. When she stepped onto the bridge of the dread sovereign, she felt no fear. She felt only cold, burning determination. The ship was badly damaged but not beyond repair. The humans had one advantage that they had never considered. They were adaptable, they were creative, they were desperate. Over the next 5 years, the survivors of Earth poured everything they had into repairing the dread sovereign. They rebuilt the reactor using a combination of technology and human innovation. They repaired the weapons systems and improved them. They strengthened the shields and fixed the hull breaches. They studied every inch of the ship until they understood it better than its original builders. The work was brutal, resources were scarce. Many workers died from radiation exposure, accidents, or simple exhaustion. But they did not stop. They could not stop. They knew they would return eventually. They knew that when the aliens came back, they would finish what they started. The humans intended to be ready. While the engineers worked on the ship, the military leaders worked on building an army. Every surviving human who could hold a weapon was trained for combat. Factories that had once made cars and appliances now made guns and armor. Children grew up learning the weak points of physiology. Hatred for the invaders became the glue that held what remained of humanity together. When the dread sovereign finally flew again in 2097, it was no longer a warship. It was a human weapon of vengeance. They renamed it the Retribution. The humans did not wait for it to return. They went hunting instead. Doctor had decoded the navigation databases. She knew the locations of their colonies, their supply routes, and their military bases. She shared this information with the new human fleet command. The first target was a mining colony in a nearby star system. The colony had no warships to defend it. They had never faced an enemy that could threaten their territory. They had grown complacent and arrogant. The Retribution jumped into the system and opened fire without warning. The colony's defenses crumbled in minutes. The mining facilities were reduced to rubble. The workers fled in terror, broadcasting desperate calls for help to the home world. For the first time in 300 years, the Empire knew fear. The High Council was shocked by the attack. They did not understand how the primitive humans had acquired such a powerful vessel. They did not understand how the humans had learned to use their technology. They sent a fleet of 20 warships to investigate and crush this unexpected rebellion. The fleet found the Retribution waiting for them near the destroyed colony. The commander, Admiral L, laughed when he saw the single enemy ship, 20 against 1. The odds were overwhelming. He ordered his fleet to attack. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 11 warships were destroyed. 5 more were crippled and drifting helplessly. The remaining 4 fled back to space with tales of horror. The Retribution had not fought alone. During the 5 years of repairs, the humans had also built smaller attack ships using salvaged technology. They had developed new weapons that combined human and alien designs. They had created tactics that they had never seen before. Admiral L's final transmission was broadcast across the entire empire. His voice shook with terror as he described the human fleet. He called them demons wearing the skin of prey. He begged for reinforcements that would never arrive in time. Then his ship exploded, and his voice fell silent. The humans pressed their advantage. They struck colony after colony, base after base. They freed the slaves of other conquered species and recruited them into their growing alliance. They captured ships and reverse-engineered their technology. They grew stronger with every victory. Within 10 years, the human fleet had swelled from a handful of vessels to over 300 warships. The freed species contributed their own ships and soldiers. What had begun as a desperate revenge mission had become a full-scale war of liberation. The High Council watched their empire crumble with disbelief. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries. They had crushed every enemy they had ever faced. They could not accept that their downfall had begun because they underestimated a species they considered barely sentient. The final battle took place above the home world in the year 2112. The combined fleet of humans and freed species numbered over 500 ships. They had gathered every remaining warship in their empire to defend their planet. It was the largest space battle in the history of the galaxy. The Retribution led the attack. Captain, now Admiral, stood on the bridge where Commander had once stood. She was 70 years old, her hair white and her face lined with age and grief. But her eyes burned with the same fire they had held when she fired those desperate torpedoes 23 years ago. The battle raged for 2 days. Ships exploded on both sides. Millions died in the void between worlds. But slowly, inevitably, the line began to break. When the last flagship was destroyed, Admiral ordered a single message broadcast to the conquered planet below. Her voice was calm and cold as she spoke. She told them that humanity had not forgotten the burning cities. They had not forgotten the 2 billion dead. They had come to return what they had given them. The High Council surrendered unconditionally. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 centuries ended that day. In the years that followed, the humans became the leaders of a new galactic order. They did not conquer or enslave the species they liberated. Instead, they built an alliance based on mutual respect and shared protection. They remembered what it felt like to be prey, and they swore that no other species would suffer as they had suffered. The Retribution was retired and turned into a museum. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the ship that had begun humanity's rise to power. They walked through the corridors where humans had once fought and died. They stood on the bridge where 2 species had sealed their fates. A plaque was mounted near the main viewport. It contained a simple message that summarized everything humanity had learned from their darkest hour. The message said that prey does not always stay prey. It said that the hunted can become hunters. It said that those who underestimate their enemies deserve the fate that finds them. The universe had learned a valuable lesson. When you wound humanity, you had better finish the job, because if you leave them alive, they will find you. They will learn your secrets. They will take your weapons. And they will return everything you gave them with interest.